The storm outside roared like a beast, rattling the ancient windows of Old Oak Manor. Lightning split the sky, casting the grand dining hall into stark, flickering shadows. Evelyn's hand hovered over the crystal wine glass, trembling, not from fear of the storm, but from the tension thickening the air. Then it came. A sharp, stinging crack across her cheek. Her mother's palm landed with a force that seemed louder than the thunder, cutting through the mansion's ostentation. The pain burned, but even sharper was the cold entitlement behind it, the unspoken message that Evelyn had always been less than Clara, less than perfect, less than worthy of the nearly $10 million at stake. "Sign it, Evelyn." Clara's voice dripped silk and poison, the gold-plated pen sliding across the mahogany table like a ceremonial weapon. "This is your chance to, take your place." Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came. She felt the weight of every family birthday, every overlooked achievement, every time her sacrifices had been invisible. Clara's eyes, brilliant with youth and cruelty, bored into her. "You were always the help. You don't deserve the crown," she said, smiling in a way that made the words sting more than the slap ever could. Beatrice, standing behind Clara like a sculpted shadow, clutched her pearls and nodded faintly, as if to reinforce the verdict. The mother who had chosen favorites, who had allowed abuse to fester like mold, was smiling now. Evelyn swallowed hard. She had spent her life navigating these traps, and tonight she realized the stakes were different. The room fell into a suffocating silence, underwater and oppressive, broken only by the low, deliberate ticking of a gilded clock. And then, for the first time all evening, someone else spoke. "Do you know who actually?" Mr. Sterling's voice cut through the tension, hesitant but firm. The lawyer had been quiet for an hour, watching, measuring, taking in every glance, every tremor. His unfinished sentence froze the room like the lightning flashing outside. Evelyn's pulse hammered in her ears. She looked at Mr. Sterling, then at Clara, then at her mother, and something shifted inside her. For 24 years, she had carried the weight of truth alone, silently witnessing the corruption, the favoritism, the entitlement, and surviving it. Now, for the first time, someone else was acknowledging it. The storm intensified, wind thrashing against the manor, echoing the chaos in her chest. Mahogany and gold surrounded her, symbols of wealth and power, but wealth had never shielded her from the cruelty in her own home. And yet, in that suffocating, luxurious prison, Evelyn finally understood the truth. She was the only person who had been living honestly, courageously. For decades her cheek burned where her mother had struck her, but her mind was clear. The slap was more than physical. It was a punctuation mark on 20 years of invisible bruises, a challenge she now had the strength to confront. "To understand the slap," she whispered almost to herself, "you have to understand the 20 years of bruises that preceded it." The words hung in the room like smoke, and even Clara faltered, her confident mask slipping just slightly. Outside, lightning illuminated the storm once more, revealing the edges of the Gothic mansion and the promise of a reckoning yet to come. Evelyn had spent 24 years learning how to vanish in plain sight. To the outside world, the Blackwells were flawless, heirs to a shipping empire, pillars of industry, philanthropists whose every gala was chronicled in glossy magazines. Inside Old Oak Manor, however, the truth was far more sinister. Clara, radiant and cruel, was the family's golden child. Beatrice, their mother, worshipped her, laughing at her jokes, excusing her tantrums, elevating her whims above the needs of everyone else. Evelyn, the quiet one, existed in the margins. An invisible shadow, a caretaker, the unacknowledged glue holding the family together. Arthur, their father, was a workaholic who had poured decades into building wealth that would never buy love. By the time dementia claimed his mind, Evelyn was the only one there to witness the slow erosion of a man who had once been so formidable. When Clara and Beatrice escaped to Paris, to Mediterranean galas and weekends, finding themselves, Evelyn stayed behind, her youth swallowed by duty. At 22, she became a nurse, accountant, social secretary, and punching bag all in one. She changed linens, managed medications, balanced payroll, and read the Wall Street Journal aloud to her father when he couldn't focus on the words himself. She held his hand as he wept for memories that slipped through his fingers, and she navigated tax audits while her mother and sister enjoyed champagne sunsets in yachts. 3 long years of this relentless caregiving left no room for exhaustion, no space for complaint, and certainly no acknowledgement. Monthly calls from Beatrice and Clara were never about Evelyn's well-being, never about Arthur's failing health. Instead, they drilled into her the precise timing of wire transfers, the deadlines of tax filings, the irritation of being 24 hours late on a payment that had taken her hours of effort to coordinate. Emotional support. 0. Solace. 1. Evelyn stood alone, the weight of an entire family's moral and financial obligations pressing her into invisibility. When Arthur died 3 weeks ago, the wound was still raw, and the vultures arrived almost immediately. No pause for mourning, no soft words, no quiet respect for grief. They came through the grand doors with clipped nails and sharper eyes, complaining about the smell of sickness, tagging furniture with post-its as if everything in the home had been a mere prop in their play. They spoke openly about the $9.7 million estate, land, offshore accounts, and luxury that had been built from the sweat of generations, but never a single word about the years Evelyn had spent sustaining it all. Then came the legal snag. Evelyn, who had watched her father's health decline, who had been the only one truly present, discovered that he had updated the deed 6 months before his death. Mysteriously, her signature was required to finalize any transaction. The question clawed at her mind. Why now? Why Evelyn? And why, when his mind was failing, had he made such a decisive move that now placed her in the middle of a battle she had never asked for? The injustice of it all. Her lifelong invisibility, the ceaseless labor, the abuse, the favoritism, coalesced into something heavy, almost tangible. She had been punished for doing the right thing, for being the only one to stand steadfast while the rest of her family indulged in luxury and cruelty. And now, that same family came to reap the rewards of a fortune that had been built on effort, loyalty, and sacrifice. Virtues they had never recognized. Evelyn's isolation, her loneliness, and her resentment had been simmering for decades, quiet, controlled, almost invisible. But each memory, each insult, each unacknowledged hour of care had been laying the groundwork for something more. She understood now, with a clarity that was both frightening and liberating. The family had underestimated her in every possible way. They assumed compliance. They assumed silence. They assumed weakness. The questions remained like storm clouds on the horizon, thick and unresolved. Why did her father update the deed? Why was Evelyn's signature required? And why, after 24 years of invisibility, had she finally become central to the game they thought they were controlling? The answers were coming. Evelyn just had to survive the first moments, the first clash, and the first betrayal that had already begun in the opulent, storm-lashed halls of Old Oak Manor. The grand library of Old Oak Manor smelled like contradiction, expensive lilies masking the faint, underlying rot of greed. Thousands of books lined the walls, their spines gleaming, untouched, symbols of a family who curated appearances but never substance. Evelyn sat at the long mahogany table, palms pressed into its cool surface, facing Clara. The distance between them felt vast, yet tangible. Two forces on opposite ends of the same room. Clara reclined in her chair, a black silk dress hugging her like a second skin, a gown worth more than Evelyn's entire college tuition. Her manicured nails tapped idly against the table, a metronome of boredom and entitlement. "You're not built for this," Clara said, her voice honeyed with cruelty. "You're simple. You like your gardens, your quiet little life. Running an estate requires sophistication." She slid a folded envelope across the table. "Take this. Stipend. You'll never have to work again." Evelyn's lips tightened around the years of silence. Her voice emerged raspy but determined. "I've been running this house for 3 years," she said. "Medications, staff payroll, tax audits. All while you were in Mykonos." The words were small but carried weight, the slow, steady accumulation of invisible labor finally finding its voice. Beatrice's eyes narrowed. She slammed her wine glass onto the table, the sharp clink reverberating through the room. "Don't you dare use that tone with your sister," she spat. Her hand gestured to the air, as if swatting at Evelyn's very existence. You were a caretaker, a glorified maid. Your father was senile when he gave you authority. We are the face of this family. You are just the shadow. Clara leaned forward, her eyes glittering with expectation. Now sign the paper, she commanded, her words smooth but lethal. Evelyn inhaled, feeling the weight of 3 decades pressing down. And then it came, her defiance, as small and simple as a whisper. No, the word landed like a grenade. The room froze. Beatrice's hand trembled above the table, her wine glass suspended mid-air. Clara's confident smirk faltered. For the first time, Evelyn's family saw her not as the invisible caretaker, the obedient shadow, the silent victim, but as a force refusing to yield. My father's heart is in this house, Evelyn continued, her voice rising, resolute now. I will not let you sell it to developers for golf courses. I will not let you destroy what he built, what he loved. I will not let you profit from his death without earning it yourself. Her gaze swept the room, daring anyone to challenge her conviction. Beatrice moved faster than Evelyn expected, her hand snapping across Evelyn's cheek. The burn was immediate, spinning her head to the side, but the room did not intervene. Clara's mouth hung open, caught between anger and disbelief. You have no other choice, Beatrice hissed. Police removal is already prepared. You are a guest here by my grace alone. Evelyn's cheek stung, tears threatening, but she did not bend. Her eyes found Mr. Sterling across the room, a silent plea for justice. The lawyer's gaze shifted from Beatrice to Clara and finally landed on Evelyn. He cleared his throat like dry leaves scraping across stone, and the room quivered in anticipation. Do you know who actually earned the initial capital for this entire estate? His voice cut through the tension, calm but laced with finality. Deathly silence followed. The lily's scent seemed to sharpen, almost bitter in the oppressive air. Beatrice's face transformed, flushing from rage to a ghostly, translucent white. Clara's confident posture faltered, the first crack in her perfect veneer. The knowledge in the room had shifted. An invisible ledger of guilt and truth laid bare. Evelyn breathed slowly, the weight of years pressing on her, but this time it felt lighter. The slap, the threats, the arrogance of her family, it had all led to this moment. For the first time she was not the shadow. She was the one standing, the one who had borne the truth, and now, finally, someone else acknowledged it outside. The storm lashed against the windows, echoing the chaos within. Inside, the silence between them carried more power than any raised voice could. The vulture picnic had begun, but Evelyn had taken her first defiant bite. Clara's voice wavered, fragile and brittle as a crystal glass, her confidence beginning to crack. Our grandfather started the firm, she said, eyes darting to Mr. Sterling, desperate for affirmation. It's family money, everything we've had. It's. Her words fell into a void. Mr. Sterling, calm and deliberate, opened his briefcase and withdrew a dusty yellow document, edges frayed with age, scenting faintly of mildew and history. The paper's weight in his hands gave it gravity. It was proof that could not be argued with, and he placed it gently on the mahogany table between them. Evelyn felt the room tilt slightly, a subtle earthquake of disbelief and hope. For 24 years, she had believed she was the child of Arthur and Beatrice, the quiet one, the overlooked daughter. She had been told her biological mother was a penniless orphan who died in childbirth, a detail whispered with pity, meant to instill humility. And now the truth crashed over her. The inheritance was not built on a lie of wealth amassed by the Blackwells' grandfather. That firm had gone bankrupt in 1994. The real fortune, her fortune, came from a private trust, meticulously preserved, created by Arthur's first wife. Evelyn's biological mother. Clara's hands trembled. Her lips parted, no words able to form. She had been preparing her speech, her threats, her condescension, but she was unprepared for this seismic blow. The very foundation of her assumed supremacy, the origin story she had built her arrogance on, was gone. Mr. Sterling's voice gained strength, growing warm with the satisfaction of justice. The trust was written to pass only to the direct bloodline of your biological mother, he explained, eyes locking on Evelyn. Beatrice was never an owner. She was only ever a beneficiary of Arthur's goodwill. And the deed you were told to sign, it wasn't for them. It was already yours. Since your 21st birthday, in fact. You merely had to wait for your father's passing for the full title to activate. He paused, letting the truth settle like sediment in a glass of wine. You already own every brick, every blade of grass, and every cent in their bank accounts. His expression was a sad, knowing smile. He had always known. He had always protected her. Absolute silence followed. The only sound was the rhythmic ticking of the clock on the mantel, a mocking heartbeat in the suffocating room. Beatrice's shoulders stiffened. Clara's mouth opened and closed, words failing her. Then desperation erupted. Clara lunged for the papers. Mr. Sterling pulled them back with practiced ease, unflinching, unshakable. "That's a lie. This is a setup," Clara screamed. "She's paying you off." "It's all here, Clara," Sterling said coldly, leaving no room for denial. "Public record. Your father knew exactly what he was doing. He kept it quiet to protect Evelyn from exactly this." Evelyn's legs felt like lead, yet her heart raced with exhilaration and vindication. She turned slowly to Beatrice, searching her eyes. "Is it true?" she asked, voice steady despite exhaustion. Beatrice did not meet her gaze. Her eyes drifted to the floor, heavy with shame. Finally, in a voice broken and brittle, she admitted, "Your mother was a fool. She thought love mattered more than legacy." Evelyn smiled faintly, controlled, perfect. "And you thought greed mattered more than your daughter," she said, each word deliberate, echoing with moral authority. She was not only the financial heir, she was the moral victor. Love, loyalty, and integrity had triumphed over avarice and cruelty. The atmosphere shifted palpably. Clara and Beatrice felt it in their bones. The room, once theirs, now belonged to Evelyn. Air seemed to fill differently, charged with authority and triumph. Evelyn walked to the sideboard, pouring herself a glass of water. Water they had withheld all night. Claiming space, claiming power. She let her gaze sweep across the room, slow, deliberate, absorbing the realization that the meekest, quietest shadow in the house had just become the ruler of its legacy. For the first time, the vulture-like smiles of her family faltered entirely. Evelyn was no longer invisible. She was the inheritor of truth, wealth, and moral justice. Evelyn stood in the center of the grand library, calm and controlled, the storm outside fading to a whisper against the walls of Old Oak Manor. She poured a glass of water slowly, deliberately, letting the liquid settle as her family waited, sweat and uncertainty creeping into their eyes. "Let's talk about the future," she said, her voice even, measured. Every movement was a masterclass in psychological warfare, making them wait, making them sweat, making them realize they no longer controlled anything. Beatrice stepped forward, her smile sickly and hollow. "Evelyn, honey," she cooed, voice syrupy with faux-maternal warmth. "We're a family. We can work this out. I was just stressed. Grief, the pressure, the slap, a terrible mistake." Evelyn cut her off with a single word, cold as ice. "The slap." She would not allow it to be minimized, reframed, or excused. No apology, no manipulation would rewrite what had just happened. She had control now, and she intended to maintain it, her eyes locked onto Clara, who sat rigid in her chair, confidence flickering. Evelyn stood over her, dominant, physical power emphasizing the new hierarchy. Clara's expression was a mixture of terror and loathing. She knew what was coming, because if the roles were reversed, she would have crushed Evelyn without hesitation. And now, finally, Evelyn understood her completely. She turned to Mr. Sterling, voice professional, precise. "As the primary trustee of the accounts, what are my rights regarding the current residents?" Sterling's expression tightened, suppressed satisfaction curling in his eyes. "They are guests," he replied. "You may terminate their residency, revoke access to all trust-funded assets, cancel credit cards, remove vehicles, and stop any allowances immediately. Clara's last shred of bravado cracked. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "You're too weak. You're the quiet one, remember." "The quiet ones are the ones who listen, Clara," Evelyn said, her tone flat and lethal. "I've been listening to you belittle me for 20 years. Listening to you plot how to kick me out, while I was holding our father's hand as he died. I've listened enough." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in, then continued, measured, deliberate. "I didn't scream. I didn't throw you out into the rain that night. That would have been too quick, too merciful. I wanted you to feel the slow realization of your new reality. You have 24 hours. Beatrice's voice cracked, fear threading through every syllable. 24 hours for what? To pack your personal belongings, Evelyn said, eyes scanning the room. Clothes, jewelry, the things you actually own. The rest stays. The furniture, the cars, the credit cards are frozen immediately. She glanced at her watch. The countdown had begun. Clara shrieked, losing all composure. "Where are we supposed to go?" Evelyn's lips curved slightly. "That apartment in the city, don't you, Clara?" She knew about the funds embezzled from their father's estate the previous year. "I've been doing the accounting. Remember, I saw the trail." The implication was clear. Any criminal activity could be exposed, any evidence leveraged. Beatrice, trembling, could barely meet Evelyn's gaze. "And you, Mother? You can go with her," Evelyn said, the irony cutting sharp. "I'm sure you'll enjoy the sophistication of a 2-bedroom condo after 30 rooms here." The word hung in the air, dripping with poetic justice. Beatrice's final mask dropped. "You're a monster," she spat, rage and fear entwined. "No," Evelyn corrected, voice steady. "I'm the owner. And the help is finished for the night." She turned, every step deliberate, reclaiming the space that had been denied to her for decades. The insult they had thrown at her, "You were always the help," now rang with new meaning, transformed into power. She opened the door, paused just long enough for one last look, and walked out. Conversation over. Decision final. Authority absolute. The next day dawned bright and serene over Old Oak Manor. Evelyn sat on the veranda, a cup of coffee warming her hands, the breeze tousling her hair. Below her, movers carried out designer luggage and the last of Clara and Beatrice's belongings. The sight was oddly comforting. The chaos, the frantic energy, the desperation, all unfolding without her needing to lift a finger. For the first time in decades, she felt it. The most peaceful day of her life. Clara cried openly, shoulders heaving as her carefully constructed world crumbled. Beatrice cursed under her breath, sharp words spilling into the air. Bitter, angry, unrepentant. Desperate calls to friends, society contacts. And the city's high society network went unanswered. Word traveled fast, and the social tide had turned. Those who once smiled politely at the Blackwells now turned away. The women who had thrived on public appearances and empty prestige were suddenly ghosts, abandoned in their own world of entitlement. Damar Sterling walked the grounds alongside Evelyn, his expression calm but satisfied. He had ensured that the legal community was aware. The $9.7 million estate had officially shifted hands. No lawyer, no bank, no society figure wanted to be on the wrong side of the new heiress. Justice had been served not with rage, but with patience, law, and precision. The social death of Clara and Beatrice was poetic, a mercenary world now reflecting back the greed they had always wielded. The estate itself remained steadfast, its mahogany floors, polished stone, and enormous windows untouched. Only the people had changed. Movers carried boxes and designer bags, a visible reminder of the family's dependency now reversed. Evelyn's vantage point on the veranda was symbolic. She was elevated, calm, in control, watching the remnants of their power vanish. Years of abuse, silent servitude, and relentless observation culminated in this moment. The estate would remain unsold, untarnished by developers, preserving her father's legacy. The truth about her heritage, long hidden, had been revealed. Evelyn was no longer invisible, no longer underestimated. She had earned her place, not with violence or threats, but with patience, intellect, and unwavering moral resolve. Evelyn sipped her coffee, eyes sweeping the grounds where the women had left, and a small smile touched her lips. The quiet one had finally spoken, and in doing so, she had claimed not only her rightful fortune but her identity, her belonging, and her father's love preserved. Below, Clara and Beatrice struggled with their luggage, their cries and curses fading into the distance. Above, the manor stood unyielding, a testament to justice and true legacy. Evelyn remained on the veranda, calm, at peace, in the home she had always been destined to inherit. The quiet one had listened, had waited, and now, in perfect silence, she reigned.